Hi everyone. Today was day 7. I think it's 8:30 and I just got home. I'm going to spend probably half an hour making this video and then get ready to go to work tomorrow, drive back to Butte for the county commissioners meeting, and then get up Thursday morning and be back at work at 7. I'll be at the county commissioners meeting in the Butte Silverbow courthouse tomorrow night at 7:30, giving a presentation on how to use the legislative website and contact legislators. So anyone who's interested is welcome to attend that. I'll be up first right at 7:30, and I'm excited to see everybody in Butte again. This morning, my morning started at 7 a.m. We're still at the point in the game where all of the bills are non-controversial. Everything we're voting on went through unanimously through committee. So you can pretty much trust that after hearing all of the testimony and taking a vote, if both Republicans and Democrats unanimously agreed on it in their committee, you can feel pretty confident in voting for it on the House floor. Since that 7 a.m. meeting was fairly short, I had about 40 minutes to respond to emails and read lots of articles that are submitted to me about different bills. I am continuing to get lots and lots of communication from people all over the state on all kinds of different bills, and I'm so happy to see that because I think everyone should have a voice and should be heard. So I'm happy to respond to those emails. In Business and Labor this morning, we had a fairly short meeting. We heard 3 bills, one from Jenny Eck to repeal the Title Loan Act. Basically, there's no need to have the Title Loan Act anymore because title loans are illegal in Montana now. One to expand basically I don't even know what the words are for it, live gambling where you have poker at a card table. And so it ups the pot from 300 to 800, and it increases the number of tournaments you can have and the size of tournaments that you can have. And I guess somewhat ironically, the third bill that we heard was to allow addictions counselors to include gambling addictions. Right now, under the definition of an addictions counselor, gambling cannot be included in that. So that left me, because that committee meeting was short, it left me quite a bit of time to work on my big bill, which is the lottery bill. That's coming up in front of Education Committee Friday at 3, and I'm trying so hard to just make sure that I have good testimony. So if you're watching this and you have gone to Montana schools and you have a mountain of student debt, or perhaps you are unable to attend schools because you can't afford it, then I'd encourage you to please come and testify for my lottery bill. It's called the Win-Win Bill, Friday at 3. It takes the lottery proceeds and takes it out of the general fund and gives it to students who are trying to go to Montana schools. So I went around today with a green sheet asking if there's anyone who would be willing to co-sponsor this lottery bill with me. And the point of doing that is the more signatures you can have on it, especially bipartisan signatures, then the more willing people are to listen to it. While I was only able to find a few signatures, I had some people who said they would definitely think about it. I had a few people who are going to read it and get back to me. And maybe the most helpful was I had several people who said, I don't really want to sign that, but here's a question they're going to ask you in committee. So I feel like I'm going to be able to go to the committee already knowing good answers to the questions that they might ask. And so I really did feel like I got a lot of bipartisan help today in moving that bill through the process. I got to go up to Allie Bovingdon's office, who is Governor Bullock's Deputy Chief of Staff, and took a bill draft from her that strengthens the provisions that require that any state contract is hiring people who are Montana residents. And that's a bill that's near and dear to me and something that I'll be working on in the future. So you'll be hearing more about that. And I'm so proud to get to be the person that the governor has asked to carry that bill. Lunch in the Rotunda today was hosted by the Montana Economic Development Association, so I got to go and see Jim Smitham from Butte. I didn't eat lunch in the Rotunda because I had made an appointment with an optometrist named Dr. Monson from Butte, and He came to the minority offices and did his best to educate us on the difference between ophthalmologists and optometrists and licensing and some of the issues associated with that, and just make his acquaintance so that in the future when we have questions, we have a contact person. And after lunch, we got ready for pictures. They took our official House of Representatives pictures today up underneath the giant Charlie Russell painting that's on the House floor. And they did all of the Democrats and all of the Republicans and all of the men and all of the women and all of the first-time legislators and all of the termed-out legislators. So that took a good half an hour. When the House session started on third reading, when the House session started at 1 o'clock, there were lots of bills up for third reading. My bill was one of those. So everyone voted on it yesterday, and then everyone votes on it again today, and it passed unanimously with just a little bit of hazing. So that bill will officially go to the Senate, and I'll learn about that process when it gets here, I guess, and I'll tell you all about it. Lots of people made introductions. You rise and you ask to be off the record and out of the journal for purposes of an introduction, and I got to practice that today because Marian Jensen, the head of the Democrat Central Committee in Butte, was there, and so I was able to introduce her, and I was really, really proud to have her there and happy to see a Butte face. We didn't have unanimous bills today on the floor. There were at first 0 no's, and then there were 2 no's, and then there were 8 no votes. Then there were, I think, 13 no votes, and then there were 22 no votes. So the no votes were kind of going up and up and up, and I was really curious as to why that was happening, and so I started asking around. I'm trying to learn about this, and a couple of the Democrats said, oh, they're just really starting to send us a message that they don't like us. And when I asked a few Republicans, they said, well, this bill did more than the sponsor of the bill said that it did. And that might be true. I'm still learning and I'm keeping an open mind, but I saw that there's some clear distrust there. Another one was there's some certain keywords that always trigger a no vote. And one of the words was licensing, that when licensing is in a bill, it'll trigger a no vote. So I'm just trying to sort through all of this information and learn how we can communicate and work together better. And every time I ask questions like that and hear those answers, I think it kind of puts a piece of the puzzle together. If you've been watching the videos or watching on TV, you can see that every day during the second reading, there's a chairperson of the day. I got asked to do that tomorrow. So tomorrow, Speaker Blaisdell will go through the House agenda parts 1 through 6, and the 7th part of the agenda is the second reading of bills. And at that point, he's going to step down, and I'm going to get up in front of the entire House of Representatives and take over as chairwoman for the day. Hope that goes okay. Yet another thing to be all nervous about, and I think that there's probably a fair amount of hazing and initiation that goes on with that. So if you want to be thoroughly entertained, maybe tune in to the House floor session tomorrow shortly after 1. I had some experience, as I talked about before, getting bill sponsors today. I'm carrying another bill that's a government transparency bill requiring the Department of Environmental Quality to post on its website the results of the energy efficiency studies that have to happen in all government buildings. And I was able to find Republican support for 2 different Republican representatives to co-sponsor that bill with me. Another way that you can co-sponsor a bill besides that green sheet is you can just take the bill around with you and have people sign all over it. So you'll end up with a bill that's got all kinds of signatures all over the front of it. And today I was able to submit a bill that had 3 signatures, mine and 2 Republicans. So that felt really good to do some more bipartisan work. After the House session, I was able to ask Marian to come onto the floor with me. She's not a lobbyist, so she's allowed in as a guest. There's a 4-hour window when really no one's allowed into the lobby or the House floor unless you basically have an invitation or are a representative or a spouse of a representative. It's 2 hours before the session and 2 hours after the session. But because Marian was there to visit and a friend of mine, it was so great to be able to invite her in and bring her to to my chair and teach her about how all of this works and give her a tour of the inner workings. And I'd be happy to do the same for anyone else that shows up and wants to kind of see how all of this works. It's always nice to see a familiar face. I think I say that a lot. Can you tell that I'm lonely? At 3 o'clock, I went to my local government meeting, and we took executive action on a bill that was non-controversial. Executive action means we just vote, and everyone voted yes. We had a presentation about how to evacuate the Capitol in case of an emergency. We talked a little bit about the consent list, which means that if everyone in committee agrees on a bill, instead of sending it to the floor for second reading where everyone on the House floor hears about it again, they basically just take the committee's recommendation that it's a good bill and they've unanimously passed it, and they put it immediately to third reading without any discussion. And so if our committee had voted to put things on the consent list, then it would basically push it through to its final stage before it goes to the Senate. That can only be done unanimously, and immediately someone on the committee said, I disagree with that. I think it's really important for more eyes to be on every bill, and I don't think we should put this on the consent list. And I might disagree with that I do disagree with that for a couple of different reasons, but I also agree that it's probably better to always have lots of eyes looking at something. So it wasn't a fight, there was no argument or contention, but we decided that we won't be putting anything on the consent list, and every bill that comes through the local government committee will be seen in front of the committee, and then will also be put for second reading and read and discussed as in front of everyone in the House of Representatives. I presented a bill to local government today. It was the most ridiculous bill. Literally, there was a mistake in language that did the opposite of what it was intended to do, and this is fixing it. And so I did this for the Association of Counties, and there was supposed to be an executive director here to talk about it, and it was time for the committee to start, and he wasn't there, and we heard the safety presentation, and he still wasn't there, and then it was my time to present, and he still wasn't there, and right as I was saying, I guess I'm here by myself today because the executive director didn't show up, he walked in the door, and he was there to answer all of the questions from the committee. So that worked out well, and I'm expecting that to pass unanimously, and we'll have another bill through. I guess as long as you stick to completely non-controversial bills, everybody gets along. That's okay. We heard 2 other bills in local government today that I'm really not sure about, and so I'm going to tomorrow spend some of this time in between committees calling the county attorney in Butte and calling chief executive in Butte, anyone that I can get a hold of, and asking them to please look at these bills and give me some direction, because I don't want to make a vote that adversely affects what we do in Butte Silver Bow. The local government committee went on and on and on with ham radio and amateur radio people, which is, I'm all about everyone getting their voice, but I was so worried because by 5 o'clock I had to go pick up a fiscal note for my lottery bill and submit the government transparency bill. Both of those things had to be done by 5 today, and I hadn't done them yet because I thought that the committee was going to get out early. So I did have to kind of sneak out of my committee for a few minutes. I totally got lucky because the power went out and we had to adjourn the meeting for a couple of minutes while they got that figured out. So I was able to go up to the 3rd floor and get a fiscal note. I talked to you guys about these already. A fiscal note is just a report from Legislative Services that says how much something's going to cost. And so this one for the lottery says it's going to cost, I don't know if you can read it. It says it's going to cost $16,000. Excuse me, $16 million. That's taken out of the general fund, but it's given to students who are taking Montana classes. So that's going to be a tough sell because it's got a really big fiscal note. And then this is the other one that I carried for the Office of Public Defender. It has a $93,000 fiscal note because it pays for an attorney for the Office of Public Defenders. So I thought you guys might want to see what a fiscal note looks like. I picked my fiscal note up and I delivered my bill. And I got back to committee just when they were reconvening, so I didn't have to miss any of it. The Democrat members of the local government committee met afterwards to discuss our opinions on these bills that are coming up for executive action on Thursday. And I just said, I can't tell you guys how I'm going to vote yet because I need to talk to the people in Butte first. And there's no pressure at all for us to vote as a block. And I'm really thankful. They just are kind of wanting to know ahead of time how everyone's going to vote if we know, so that we can anticipate whether there's going to be an argument or a confrontation and plan for that. I left the Capitol around 5:30 or 6, walked back to my house and went to a dinner that was held by the Montana co-ops, and I got to hear from the electric co-ops, a lot of little rural co-ops and telecommunications co-ops, people that I wouldn't normally hear from, and I got to hear different opinions about how the state works and how it could work better. So that was time well spent. I wanted to show you guys before I'm done today the business cards that we got. It's been really fun being able to hand people official state business cards. And we also get state letterhead. So the envelopes have the return address of the Capitol, and then the letterhead has the return address of the Capitol. And I can write letters to my constituents and put these in the mail, and they're exempt from postage. I told anyone if they wanted to ask a question that I'd be happy to answer that. And one person did ask a question about the difference between the minority whip, the minority leader, and the minority caucus chair. And I'm not totally sure what the difference is, so I might be able to explain this better later. The minority whip is Edie McClafferty, and she basically wrangles us. She makes sure that we are all, especially the freshmen, where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be there, and that we know what we're going to say when we're there, that we're well practiced for our committee. And she's such a huge source of help, and she's always available. The caucus chair is really helping us message. So he's gathering information about, it's Bryce Bennett, and he's gathering information about our bills that are the most important to us and directing us to any media outlets when someone wants to do an interview, and press releases, and a lot of social media. And then Chuck Hunter is our minority leader, and I don't know how to describe him. This is probably inappropriate because he's kind of like, I don't know, like the godfather of the Democrats, right? He's the person that you can go to ask a question. He's making sure that we're all unified. Not to say that there's a pressure that we all have to feel the same way and vote the same way and say the same thing, but just to always remember that we're all working towards a common goal and we are on the same team, and that we have lots of clear communication about where we're going and how we're going to get there. That's kind of a vague answer, but I'm still learning a lot about this also. I'm going to go to bed and wake up in the morning for my 7 o'clock meeting. I'm going to drive to Butte right after my Human Services meeting tomorrow and present at the County Commissioners meeting. So it'd be nice to see any of you there that are interested in learning how to contact a legislator. Thank you so much for all of the texts and Facebook posts and emails and phone calls. And I miss you so much, and have a great night.